Um, okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We have done with yet another week. I think this is week number 7, and this is going strong. We're slightly delayed, but we read the book in the last week itself, and then it's only the recording that has taken some time. I'm back with Anup yet again. Hi, Anup.
Hello, Shiraz.
I see there's a bit of uh, noise going around in the community about the book challenge we're doing, and there are more and more people interested. Uh,
Yeah, people sure are interested. I think there are now even some people who are actually doing it with us, like actually reading the book.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So anybody else who is watching this video, this is for us to make a video every week to make sure that you know that we are reading. We hope you will hold us accountable, and also to motivate somebody else who wants to join and probably read one book a week. I remember when I was a young boy, I would read one book a day. There would be one book I would pick up and I would start reading from uh, 9 a.m. and then read all night up to 4 a.m. the next day. So that lot of enthusiasm has kind of dried away, but hopefully I can get out of the brain rot that technology have brought in to all of us and then be able to recapture the youth excitement I used to have.
when would you
Uh,
sleep? So, if you would read till 4, huh?
no, there will be occasions. So, for example, I wouldn't have access to books every day.
Mm-hmm.
So there would be probably like during the weekends where I could read books, and we didn't have computer back in the days. You remember, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way was either you read and or you go out and play, and then that's
Mm-hmm.
all that I used to go out and play and then read.
Yeah. To actually like side information. Before I was watching the news, they were saying that in one country, I
Mm-hmm.
think in one English country,
Mm-hmm.
they are now banning the use of smartphone for children under 12, So
Okay.
now they so that they go outside and play and stuff like that. I think I found it like really interesting.
Yeah, that's I mean I don't think you can fault the children because the parents themselves are so engrossed inside the
Mm, mm,
devices.
mm.
So the children learn from their parents. I don't think making legislation around it makes sense,
Yeah.
at least. But yeah, this exercise is a bit more like me trying to rekindle this
Mm,
reading habit I used to have. Uh, I when I was a very young kid, I used to read a lot. During my teen years, it went kind of down.
mm,
When I was doing my bachelor's, I again met with few guys, few of my friends who read, so I would read a
mm,
bit, and then my mom bought me a Kindle for my 22nd or 23rd birthday,
mm,
and then my reading habits went up again quite a
mm,
bit. And since
mm.
moving to Germany, it is again in recent days since uh, I left university, it was going kind of down, so I just wanted to rekindle it once again.
Mm, mm, mm.
And the kind of books we are reading is a big mixed variety. So far, not so much because Anup here is a bit having a bit of existential crisis and wants to read Dostoevsky a lot.
Always, always.
And last week as well, we were reading White Nights by Dostoevsky, not his typical existential book, but I would
Mm.
say it was still a very, very tragic book. How would you
But
say?
come on, I wanted to like at least spare you this time with Dostoevsky, like I wanted to give you a romance book.
Ah, that was not the kind of romance I was imagining. Uh, the thing I felt about the books that I have read so far from Dostoevsky, a unique idea is uh, on the internet, most of the people say that those characters are kind of oddballs, right? But when I read them, I feel kind of like they are myself. Not
Mm,
necessarily all of them, but there are parts of me inside those characters, and I can kind of see myself in their shoes. And mm, I kind of feel maybe I am an oddball, right?
mm,
But also I also enjoy reading about it in a sense that I feel like I'm reading about myself from somebody else's perspective, like these parts of me, these parts of myself, and kind of brings me to a different kind of perspective. about myself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Dostoevsky was trying to kind of test your personality, right?
Mm,
Like, he wants to, I think, make us think like what we are capable of or what we are not capable of. Like if
mm,
you read other books of its themes, it is kind of like situations
mm,
where, like, I think he's asking us a question, like what would you do in this situation, or how would you act in this situation, right?
yeah.
Um, Definitely. In this book, though, I felt the characters were quite normal,
Mm,
average in some sense in comparison to his other books,
mm,
right? Um, we have this guy, like, who is also really interested in literature and
mm,
everything, and it is his way of, I guess, fighting with the loneliness of the world,
mm,
right?
mm.
But he was rather average from Tuesday in comparison to his other characters.
Maybe before we can dive into that, let's do with our typical synopsizes the book. Maybe if you give a brief rundown, then everybody else listening to us who have not read the book would
Mm,
get some perspective on what we are talking about.
yeah, sure. Okay, spoiler side again, guys. If you want to read the book freshly, then don't listen to it. But okay, let's start. So there's this one woman who is waiting near a bridge,
Mm,
and there's our protagonist who actually goes by and he walks and stuff, and then he's actually saying it was quite a normal day. There
mm,
was this one guy that he would always see in the area,
mm,
and they wouldn't talk, but are actually quite fond of each other. It seems. At least that's
mm,
what I get from the book. Got from it, and then he sees the woman, and he notices her, and later on there is another person who is, I think, I don't know, like trying to do something to the woman, right?
mm,
And then he kind of protects her by like shooing him away, right?
mm,
And, and then they start talking. So then their white nights start, right?
mm,
It's like 3 or 4 nights, and where the narrator, like the protagonist, he starts falling in love with the woman,
mm,
and the woman actually says in the beginning that she can't offer him more than friendship, but
mm,
eventually the narrator, he promises that he won't, but like he starts falling in love with her.
mm,
The woman explains that she's waiting for her actual lover,
mm,
who went to Moscow for 1 year and who would come back, right?
mm.
And she was actually waiting for that guy. And yeah, like, I don't know, should I say what happens in the end or not?
Yeah, yeah, I think you should. It makes sense. It makes only sense.
Okay, so in the end, after they wait, after they write letters to this guy, like who went to the Moscow, and he doesn't show up, right? So then our protagonist confesses his love to the to
Mm,
Naste to Nastenka. I think that was the name,
mm,
right?
mm,
And Nastenka also kind of responds positively, but
mm,
then the then the guy from Moscow comes, right, and then Nastenka just goes over to the guy, and yeah, our protagonist is sad and lonely again,
yeah.
and he spends the rest of the next 13 or 15 years in his same room again, where we are in the initial situation, I guess.
Mm. Yeah, the amount of time the character says the name Nastenka throughout the book is really after a certain point it was getting really annoying to me, to be honest with you.
uh,
Uh, I
yeah.
think I think Dostoevsky read that famous book by Dale Carnegie about how to win friends and influence people, and then just picked up, just wanted to show how ridiculous it is. But yeah, I
Mm,
think you covered it in much more detail, at least from my point of view. The whole book was basically this girl is waiting for a guy who promised that he would be back in 1 year, Meanwhile, she finds our narrator, and they are waiting together. And I think the whole 3 or 4 nights is a period where they spend a lot of time together, until the girl feels like she's falling for our narrator. Um, and then at the end, when the first guy comes back, the girl is kind of torn between if she wants to be with the narrator or with the guy she promised, but she ends up with the guy she promised, and everything else is kind of like the girl sharing her part of story and the guy sharing his part of story, and yeah, basically both of them having a very long conversation.
Mm.
And I would imagine my conversations goes as coherently and as uh, well as articulate in an articulate manner like theirs do.
Mm.
Mm, my feeling, at least, was the most. I don't know. I wanted to ask you, which part of the story did you find more captivating? Like, I would say we can divide the part into three parts. The first is the one where the narrator explains about himself in the second night, right?
Mm.
Everything
Mm.
before that is kind of like a build up to it, and then the narrator explains about him. I think
Yeah.
the second part is where the uh, girl Nastenka explains her situation about how she has been isolated from the world. Her grandmother is super protective of her, and she has been literally pinned with her grandmother. And then the third part is both of the character facing their crisis. For example,
Mm.
the Nastenka is feeling a sense of crisis because her promised lover does not return back to pick her up,
Mm.
whereas our narrator is feeling the crisis of maybe the promised lover will come back and then he won't get to spend time with Nastenka as much as he's being fortunate enough to spend time at that particular period of time.
Mm.
And at the end, only one of these crises gets resolved, at least for Nastenka, and our narrator is left kind of feeling lonely.
Mm. 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 Yeah. The part with like her grandma kind of I don't
Mm,
know, pinning or sewing her cloth into her own clothes, right? Like her
yeah,
closet, so
yeah.
that she doesn't escape the house because she has done something not in the past. She
Mm,
said, I don't think she said what, but like she said something like
yeah.
that, right? That was funny and sad at the same time, right? So at that point, I was like, oh, really? She did that? But I also found it like really funny.
Mm, yeah.
Uh,
For me, I found the first part where the narrator explains about himself, like how he's a dreamer, right? How he
mm,
imagines this lady, imaginary lady, and all this moment he shares with her, and then feels this loneliness every time he has to go out to the real world.
mm,
In a sense, because that's one of the biggest part I used to relate, especially when I was very young.
mm,
Uh, in mid-teens, I used to be a lot inside my own head and not necessarily go outside. It's like I
mm,
would have this bubble and picture and imagine a lot of things. And sometimes I think maybe it is the consequence of reading a lot of books, because
mm,
once you read a lot of books, you can form imagery inside your head,
yeah,
and you're also in a way shielded away from other people, your social interactions, which
mm,
gives
mm,
you the real image of how the world is and not necessarily the idealized version that you read in the books, right?
mm, mm,
Because all the things that you read in the books are idiosyncratic characters, and those are kind of highlighted in a sense where the writer tries to make him as colorful, as attractive as possible, and you end up thinking those are how real people are, but turns out they are not. They're
mm,
not like how narrator has written them. And I think
mm,
the narrator in this story, in White Knights, actually suffers from similar problem, is that he's so shielded away from society, he hasn't interacted enough with people, that he's forming a lot of his ideas based on everything that he has read and not necessarily on people he has met or experiences he
mm.
has accumulated in the real world. And that was the part that was really interesting to me. And kind of at that point, while reading that, I could see myself there, and then I could kind of predict what's going to happen towards the end of the story itself.
Somehow, like the characters in Dostoevsky's book, at least the narrator, they are actually really similar, I feel. Even in Notes from Underground, right? Like,
Mm-mm.
he was also quite a literate guy and
Yeah.
who was socially awkward, right?
Yeah.
In Crime and Punishment, I don't know if you have read that.
I have not.
They're also the main character is kind of like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of on its own, but he is actually smart. He has actually published something, some
Mm-hmm.
journals or something like that, some story, right? Yeah. And here too, it was the same case, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is reoccurring, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe in a way, Dostoevsky himself is like that. We don't know. I mean, I have not read so much about him personally other than his
Mm,
work, but
mm,
maybe he is something like that, and then he can easily relate to the characters that are more
mm,
idiosyncratic
mm.
in such a way.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
do you yourself fall under the similar category where you used to probably in your younger days spend a lot more time reading, or probably in our generation watching TVs, which is an alternative to reading, and then not socialize as much, and in a way kind of lost touch with the society, or at least the social
Mm-hmm.
aspects of your living?
No, not reading, definitely not.
Mm,
But other things I think is also valid in my case because I grew up here in Germany, right? So
yeah.
in the initial days, my language skills were not that great. So
Mm-mm.
I also didn't have that many friends, I guess. So
Mm-mm.
I had a lot of time for myself,
Mm-mm.
and I spent this time with thinking a lot
Mm-mm.
about different sorts of stuff, right?
Mm-mm.
Um, Not necessarily how to escape the loneliness,
Mm-mm.
but more necessarily more about like what is the point of life, you know, why are
Mm-mm.
we doing this and stuff like that, right? So
Mm-mm.
maybe there's a reason why I am recommending these Dostoevsky books all the time, you know.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
But yeah, it certainly was time during my teenager time where I thought a lot about
So
the world and stuff.
did you also have a situation where you would in your head were you comfortable speaking with girls back in the day?
No,
So
definitely
in
not.
all
Definitely
right,
not. I guess, yeah.
yeah. So during that time, did you ever create a picture inside your head of an ideal girl and then hoping you would speak with her or something like that? So you know how the narrator speaks about this ideal girl he imagines, and then
Mm,
he always
mm, mm,
thinks of speaking with her, but never conjures up the courage to speak with her,
mm.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
I can
yeah.
relate to that because I remember there was this really beautiful girl.
Mm,
She was not even beautiful when I think back now, but back in the day, she was so beautiful. I remember once I spoke with her and was returning back home. I was
mm,
grinning all the way back home, and
mm,
my friends were asking, "What's wrong with you?" So that was
mm,
that was a serious case of infatuation for me, but
mm.
I never could conjure up the courage to speak to her in
Yeah,
any
yeah,
way.
yeah.
But I had built up a big world of fantastic personality in my head,
Mm,
uh, and probably after some time, because I had built her so high inside my head that she became more intimidating than attractive to me.
mm, mm,
And
mm.
that's the similar something that the narrator says as well. And I was wondering if you had something like that in your case.
Uh, yeah, I guess definitely during my teenager time, during the puberty, I guess, when the puberty hits, right?
Mm-mm.
Then definitely there are a lot of a lot of instances where I had my imagination with someone, I guess, right?
Mm-mm.
Even though it was in my head. Mm,
Mm-mm.
and I was just too shy to kind of ask them out, but
Mm-mm.
it was like this whole world inside my mind, right?
Mm-mm.
So yeah, I agree with that.
Mm. Yeah, that's
Similar to that.
that's
Sometimes I think
something.
like the imagination is even like more better than the reality itself, right?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I
Right?
can't hear you. Sorry?
People are more enjoying the imaginary world than the real world sometimes, right?
Yeah. I think it's almost every time some we enjoy the imaginary world. Probably that's
Mm,
why we read books, stories, and so on, because that the books, they are like a synopsis of everything that happened throughout the day. You write
Mm,
every highlight of your day and then you create a book. And
mm,
naturally, that's going to be more exciting than every hour that you spend just trudging through life, trying to go through the mundane tasks, and you remove the romances out of life because probably in 24 hours you only feel, say, the fleeting feeling of emotion for 1 hour every day. But the next 23 hours you have to live with yourself. Whereas in books, you read those 1 hour, and you can reread them multiple times to really feel them. And
mm,
in a sense, that the romantic notion of reading comes from there itself. And our narrator suffers from this. Is I feel one of the consequence, or at least the reason for him not being so socially apt and and capable of speaking with girls in this specific case is because he's so into imagination and he really finds pleasure in it rather than speaking with other people.
mm, mm, mm. No,
Um,
I think I know what you mean. It was
I,
also
I,
quite fun, right? Like, because it was, I think, the first interaction in quite a long time that he had with someone,
yeah,
and was so friendly, I guess.
yeah. I like the detail where he kind of does not speak with the girl in the first thought he has. So he sees the girl, they exchange glances, both of them share a smile with each other, but he cannot muster the courage to speak with her, but
Mm,
only in an afterthought once the girl is kind of preparing to leave that he follows her. And lucky enough, there is a chance encounter where he gets to shield the girl from a perpetrator. But uh, my thought is if there was no incident, then he would not speak with the girl at all. And it was the forced circumstance that created everything around it.
mm,
And I like that detail because this guy, after all, is spending a lot more time inside his head trying to picture an ideal situation, unlike how the life is, which is filled with a lot of impractical, uncomfortable, awkward moments, which you
mm,
have to accept. And over time, once you speak with more people, you interact with more people, you learn it, but you have to go out and learn those things. And these kind of details, I really enjoyed it. I think that really made him an excellent. I think this makes Dostoevsky a really amazing writer that he keeps an eye on these small details
mm,
throughout the
mm,
stories.
mm. Yeah.
Mm.
I
Uh,
pretty like the end. Like, do you think she did the right decision by choosing that another guy over him, or what do you think about that?
I would not say so. I wouldn't say if it's a right decision or wrong, at least from the girl's perspective,
Mm,
because I try to put myself in her shoes and then try to picture a situation where basically from her perspective she's being rescued by this particular guy, right? She's
mm,
necessarily not happy. I wouldn't say she's unhappy, but she's not living a very happy life, and then she has to contend with being literally pinned with her grandmother for majority of hours of a day, doing ladylike things, and her grandmother is very protective of her. And there's this young, handsome guy that moves as a tenant in their house upstairs, and then she gets to see him a couple of times, and he approaches her, offers to show her the world, kind of shield her from her grandma's protectiveness, and then at the end of the story even promise that he will be a man worthy of her and then accumulate enough prestige so that he can ask for her hand in marriage. It's over 1 year for a long period of time. I don't remember the exact number of days, but for a long period of time, she courts the guy, and then she's waiting for 1 year for the guy, and then this other guy that comes by. It's only 3 or 4 days. He's speaking with her. She feels a sense of comfort with him, but she's not waiting for the new guy. So from the girl's perspective, I completely understand her wanting to go with the guy she originally promised, but I was not happy, at least dissatisfied from the guy's perspective was he was actively trying to set the girl up with the guy. So throughout the story, the guy proposes sending letters for in the girl's name to the guy. He tries to console the girl, and I know it's a noble thing to do. I have done those things myself. To be honest with you, I wouldn't say probably, I have done those things myself. But sometimes, like they say, everything is fair in love and war. You have to be selfish, you have to be selfish and try to play the unfair game, probably dissuade her from
Mm.
pursuing the new guy, try to
Mm.
be more forward. But I think the guy has the notion of romanticism inside his head, and he sees he is like one of the characters in a book, in a meta
Mm.
way, but
Mm.
he probably sees himself that way. And if you are a good character inside a book, then that's the course of action you will take. That is, you try to uh, show the right way to the girl, and hope that she realizes that in your selflessness there is love hidden in you, and then recognize it and accept it.
Mm. Like
So
she wasn't that unaware or that he was falling for her, right? And she actually knew it. It
yeah,
seems, but
yeah,
just kind of like trying to ignore it, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
um, yeah.
I think it's a very natural thing, to be honest with you. But I found this more common in women than in men, that they enjoy people uh, liking them, giving them constant attention, right? And yeah, I know I also would feel really comfortable with that, but because uh, I would probably, after a point, if I knew that somebody likes me and I don't like them back, then I would just tell them that I don't like you. I feel like you like me, but I don't like you. But
Mm.
in this story, the girl is kind of really enjoying the attention she's receiving. And I have heard from other women as well who say that they know the other person likes them, but because the other guy has not outright came front and spoke them out, they just like the attention and just hook them together.
Mm. This I agree with some points. I mean, like this indirectness, this indecisiveness that's there. That's what I've also seen from a lot of women. But I don't know if we can generalize it, man.
No, no, I mean, I'm not saying that it's indecisiveness. It's rather pleasure in being, I would say, desired. You know,
The
uh,
pleasure of getting attention, you mean?
exactly. So it's basically there's a guy who really desires me, and he's sacrificing his time. Plus, he's also kind of, uh, uh, you know, sacrificing his love for me in a sense. Because at the end of the story, she says, "I feel love for both of you, but I'm going to marry the new guy," right? And then she doesn't want our narrator to forget her.
Mm, mm, mm,
She says, "Remember me throughout your life." And in a sense, I mean, I myself will also feel similarly if somebody is really into me. The
mm,
thing is, guys are not fortunate enough to have multiple women swooning over them.
mm,
And so I wouldn't say I haven't been very fortunate to have women swooning over me, but there are probably guys who have women swooning over them, and then
mm,
they will probably be, they can probably relate with that. But as of right now, I cannot do that.
mm. Yeah, a lot of things to unpack.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess. Yeah. There is certainly this thing with the character Stenka, right? Like that as soon as she kind of realizes that her lover
Mm-hmm.
from Moscow, he is not coming, but
Mm,
she is like really willing to accept
mm,
our protagonist, right?
mm,
But because I don't know, like maybe she doesn't want to deal with the loneliness and like let's take the second best option there is,
mm,
right?
mm,
Like let's
mm.
not be empty-handed. I guess that's
Yeah,
certainly there, right?
yeah.
In the story. And as soon as he comes back, then she's like, "Oh, okay, bye."
Yeah. But
Right,
yeah,
that's
but the thing I was addressing was not necessarily the thing. She doesn't say, "Oh, okay, bye. I found this guy," right? She says, "I
Hmm.
like both of you, and I would wish you are also in my life."
Yeah, but I mean, like, she still decides for the another guy, right? Like
Yeah. She does.
that.
I
That that,
mean,
that being said, I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. For me, it kind of felt like, how can I now politely get rid of this guy?
uh, maybe I read too much into the
No, I get it.
narration.
Yeah, no, I get it. She was also writing this letter and stuff. Look, like I think she was also having regrets, right? So,
Mm,
oh, I was there, and this guy, I gave this guy hope, and suddenly that another guy came, and then I was like, oh, okay, bye bye. So,
mm,
I'm not a good person, something like that. Maybe she had like, maybe she felt like really guilty.
mm.
But the message was the same, right? Come on, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that I couldn't decide for you. Oh, I love
We,
you. I love both of you, but both of us. Then, like, why decide for that guy and not for me, right? So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
mm, mm.
Would you say Dostoevsky were a bit misogynistic on how he presented Nastenka to us?
No. I think it was moreover about it was more. He was questioning the I think people were romanticizing back then a lot,
Mm, mm,
and I think he was kind of criticizing the romanticizing part, that
mm,
true romance doesn't exist,
mm, mm,
like like a lot of the times he does, like what is good and what is evil and all that stuff, right? So
mm, mm,
I think he was questioning that.
mm. Yeah. Another thing that was very interesting for me was how quickly the character Nastenka changes her mind over who she prefers,
Mm,
right? She's
mm,
hugging our narrator for a moment and immediately she sees the other guy and then she's running over to him.
mm,
Whereas our main character, even 30 years on, I think it's 30 or 13 years on, he's still thinking about Nastenka. So he's
yeah,
not moved on. And
yeah,
uh, in a way, it shows that maybe the reason behind it is that he cannot speak with other girls. Possibly Nastenka was the only one he could openly speak with.
mm,
Or it could also be that he loved Nastenka so much that he can no longer uh, move her, move his heart away from her. Is
mm,
that the love he feels is now solely reserved for Nastenka?
yeah, definitely. I think even in the end, he says, "I wish her all the best" and stuff like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
That
This
story.
this reminded me of this Hindi movie called Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, where Salman.
Ah,
Have you watched the movie?
yeah, I have.
Where Salman Khan gives up Kajal so that she can go and marry Shahrukh Khan.
Mm, mm, mm,
In a sense, that's how it feels.
mm.
So I would ask you a weird question. Have you ever had any girl confess to you that they love you, uh, before, say, when you're 10 years ago?
No,
No?
no.
Okay. Mm.
Why are you putting salt in the wounds?
No. My follow-up question was going to be, so how would you react if the girl comes back, sees you, and says, "Ah, I always liked you, and I hope we can get together," or something like that?
No,
Yeah.
no, I don't think so. That I
Mm.
would.
Would you be a bit suspicious, or would you be like, would it be more from the position of suspicion, or would it be from a position of, yeah, I don't know you anymore. You're not the same person anymore.
I think a little bit of both, right? Like
Mm.
after 10 years, why is he coming to me now? First
Mm.
of all, and second of all, it's 10 years, right? Like a lot of
Yeah.
things happen in 10 years,
Yeah.
So I know that person. Like I mean, if it were someone whom I really loved, like
Mm. Let's say a
even
character
one
X.
year ago, 1 year ago or 2 years ago, right? Like I
Mm.
would still be I mean, like even there, then I'd be like, okay, like let's think about it. But like 1 or 2 years would still be okay, I guess. But 10 years is too much, man.
Mm,
I think it's about the number, right? It sounds funny,
mm,
but like I think it's about the number.
mm, mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's about you?
No, I mean, I don't know. The thing is, basically, I would also say, yeah, not necessarily because I've moved
Mm,
on, but sometimes I wonder if this, and I think this is for everyone, is the reason we move on is because we don't have the possibility of being in the exact moment that we experience those feelings, right? We need to move on from different things in life, not necessarily romantic, but we have to move on because life is moving, time is limited, and you can't expect to be in the same situation every time.
mm,
Uh, so if somebody comes back 10 years later, probably not. But if there's an option for me to say go back 10 years in time, be the same person, and live that moment once again, then I will probably do it.
mm, mm,
So,
mm,
do you get what I'm trying to say? It's that uh, I had probably moved on, right?
mm,
And as I think of now, uh, probably no. But if
mm.
I was going to be able to capture the moment that I felt 10 years ago, then I might. So it's a bit of a complex situation, but that's how I think about it.
Mm.
Yeah, here we go again. Read books and then create super complex. I feel like we are inside a Dostoevsky's novel right now. He's writing this masterpiece of two idiots, right? There's one idiot. There's the idiot book, right? And there's another idiot book. So it's probably going to be two idiots. uh, and two
Funny,
characters trying to create stories.
funny thing is, like, there is a book called The Idiot, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like,
That's the
okay, okay, okay. That's
the premise is the same thing.
uh,
Mm. But it was a much more light-hearted book compared to other existential dread I had to feel. The ending was the only one I was, I would say I had questions, but uh, I had more questions from the
mm.
motivations of our main character rather than I questioned the girl. I think I totally understood why the girl would do what she did,
I
and it was
saw it
completely
coming.
understandable. Yeah.
I saw it coming. Like I was reading the book and I knew that I'm in the last chapter, right? So I
Mm-mm.
was like, yeah, no, it's Dostoevsky. Come on, like he wants like make a good book, like if something happens in these last 2 pages, and I was prepared, because I know
Mm,
Dostoevsky, as an author, right? That
mm,
something might happen in the end. So yeah, but still
mm.
sad for the protagonist.
So yeah, that's it for this book. What do you have planned for next week? It's my recommendation, and we already discussed about this, but just for everybody else who want to join along, for this week we are going to read The Mysterious Stranger by Mark Twain. Uh, just to give you a bit of background of why I chose this book was I was watching this movie called Django Unchained, which is about this American slave culture in the South, and I had read about it at first time in my life in Mark Twain's novel called The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. And we come from, at least I come from a part of the world where slavery was practiced but was not taught as much, right? Uh, I, we were not taught about it when you're younger. The only slavery you are taught about is from other countries and not necessarily your own country. And I read about it for the first time about slavery, and I remember asking my mom, "Oh, can people really own other people?" And then she had to. I don't remember how she answered, but I only remember me asking the question, and then thinking about it a lot. And after reading the book, it was quite interesting. So years later on, now I again wanted to read something by Mark Twain. Adventures of Tom Sawyer was a bit longer, so I found The Stranger to be a book that is probably in the same time period, and then yeah, it's going to be interesting. Mark Twain is a really nice writer. I enjoy other of his books.
Hmm.
I read him when I was much younger, 12 years old or 13 years old. Uh, very short books, probably simplified for the purpose of young readers. But let's see, let's read this one for the next weekend. Luckily enough, the week after is also for me to choose because Anup chose last week and the week before. So we will be reading something more light-hearted these days. Uh, Mark Twain for this week and next week. I'm hoping we can find a book by Sherlock Holmes. You know, get a bit of mystery, a bit of action, a bit of theory crafting around our conversation seat here, and move a bit away from the dark dungeons of Dostoevsky's viewpoint of life.
I think we're almost done with Dostoevsky, man. Like, I mean, with his famous works, like two are missing, but like Demet and the brother Karamazov, they're like pretty long books, right? So,
Hopefully, before the year, we can maybe, after 6 months we have completed, we can set up a weekly book and say a monthly book, right? Where we try
mm,
to read two books in parallel.
yeah,
Weekly book would be the something would be 100 pages, under 200 pages, and then monthly book would be something around 500 pages that we can come back to once a month. But for now, let's stick to this format. Let's try
mm,
to build up. Let's try to get more and more books we can read. Let's talk about them, and hopefully other people will join us in the fun. And then, yeah, we can think about them later. So, do you have any last words you want to say about White Knights, about uh, probably about your own experiences with love? Maybe
no, I
you could
think I'm
relate
done.
with the main character. Maybe you felt something like that. But
I was just sad in the end, but I mean, so were you,
mm,
right?
yeah, I
So
was
we're
really
brothers.
mad. I was actually really mad at the guy for feeling really uh, falling heels over head over the girl.
Yeah,
He barely saw, but I think that's a very typical man guy's thing to do. You look at somebody and you just fall in love with them.
yeah.
So thank you very much, Anup, yet again. Really
Mm,
appreciate you doing this with me, and we hope to be back next week. Thank you very much.
thank you.